Hi there, my name is Brian Alexander. I'm one of the founding members of Saturn Hex Media. One of the things I wanted to accomplish with this channel and this company as a whole is this idea of learning to express your creativeness, because there was a certain point in my life where I didn't think I would be working in media whatsoever. Because, whenever you're in elementary school, you have all those kids, oh, I want to be an astronaut, oh, I want to be a cowboy. But me, I always kind of felt like I was the outlier in those situations because I always said, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to be a director, I want to be a writer. And growing up, that seemed like a possibility. Oh, of course I can become a director. I have all these amazing ideas. But then, progressively, as you get into middle school, reality starts to set in. Reality as far as a middle schooler could possibly know. And there was a time where I thought to myself, maybe I should start listening to what other people tell me. Maybe I should become, like a doctor or a lawyer. And it honestly got me down because none of that inspired any sort of confidence in me. It always felt like, okay, that's going to a job. You have your job, which is something that you hate, and then you get to go home and you get to enjoy the things that you usually do. And for me, I was just always the kid. I wanted to go home so I could watch TV because that's what I enjoyed. I enjoy stories. I enjoy listening to stories. It was roughly around 6th or 7th grade, and if my editing's good, this will come out exactly 10 years after this event happened, so fingers crossed on that. But basically, it was pretty much just like any other, like series of days of coming home from school. I remember it was specifically Spike TV where they used to do a lot of reruns of old CSI episodes. I ate that show up. I thought it was great. But pretty much every commercial break, there was this commercial about some stupid science fiction show, and it just kept playing and playing and playing. And it was a series of images that made no sense to me at the time. And so, it's just sort of like, all right, it's a new TV show, who gives a hoot? There's a million new TV shows on every single day. But the commercials just kept playing and playing and playing. And the series of images that I had no context for started intriguing me more and more and more because I'm naturally, I guess, inclined to be interested in science fiction, horror, all those kinds of things. And it was definitely a science fiction show. And eventually there was just so much in my face. It was just sort of like, okay, fine, I'll give it a watch. And it was April of 2010. I believe it was April 10th to be exact. It's going to be really awkward if it wasn't April 10th, but it was somewhere around there. And I remember I just finally sat down and said, okay, I'm going to watch whatever the hell this is. I changed the channel to BBC America, and it's playing Doctor Who. I switch on the channel, and the very first thing I saw, it was something set in Victorian London. It's just like, okay, some kind of period thing, sure. And then this guy with really tall, obnoxious hair opens a door, and there's a robot standing there. And so I was intrigued. And I don't remember if I finished watching the episode, but basically I just had that little hook that got me just sort of interested in being like, okay, this might be something I would like. And I remember the guy who was the lead in the show was not the same person I was seeing in the commercials. And it's just like, okay, there's something weird going on here. There's something a little bit wonky. And I came back to watching it because I think it was dinner time about that point. I came back into my bedroom to watch the show just as the new season was premiering. And I remember I caught the final moments of David Tennant as the Doctor as he regenerated into Matt Smith. And again, I had no context for what was going on, but all I knew was the person who I had fleeting moments watching had changed into the guy I had seen in the commercials. And so at that point, it's just sort of like, okay, I don't understand what's going on, but my brain was starting to put those pieces together like, okay, if I watch this, I might understand more of what's happening. In reality, there probably wasn't an event like this, but I kind of like to invent a seminal moment for me watching the show, because I had just watched David Tennant regenerate into Matt Smith. I didn't know either of their names at the time, but my brain was just sort of like, okay, I'm kind of caught up to where the marketing is at this point. If I keep watching, I might begin to understand what the hell is going on. And so, as I was watching the opening moments of Matt Smith's first episode, The 11th Hour, I was into it. I was understanding, okay, there are things happening here. I just have to kind of get caught up. And it was the moment when the theme started to play, because there are a lot of things in media where you just kind of pick it up through osmosis. And the Doctor Who theme just kind of happened to be one of those things that my brain recognized, but it never really understood where it was from. And so just having that moment of discovery of, oh wait, one of these things that's just kind of part of culture is right here. I'm discovering it for myself for the first time. And I like to think that was the moment where you know, like the kind of key was turned in the lock, and it's just sort of like, okay, I'm in this ride for a long time now. Every single week on Saturday on the dime, 9 o'clock, and you know, it just kind of became part of my schedule. And then on top of that, they would do a lot of reruns of Doctor Who after I would get home from school, and so I kind of got caught up that way. And so just over the course of 13 weeks, it was just a crazy new addiction that I had just out of nowhere. It hit me like a train. So during this time where I was just discovering the show for the first time on television, I was also just watching these 5-minute little AMVs where I would get a series of more images without context, and it's just like, holy cow, there's so much here to discover. It's like you discover all the backstory of the Lord of the Rings before the actual story of Lord of the Rings, and it's just like, oh my god, there's so much more here to dissect, to look through. And I became fascinated with it. I had a lot of free time after school because I was a good kid. And so I would just dedicate my time to trying to discover what little bits and pieces I could. And during that time, there really wasn't like a sort of central database to look around and peruse, or maybe there was, I was just stupid and couldn't find it. But I kind of had to wing this myself and discover it. Wikipedia turned out to be probably the biggest help at the time. And so once the season ended, I knew I just wanted more. So I discovered that you can buy pretty much all of these old episodes on DVD, and that's kind of what I did. Between the wait of season 5 and season 6, that was just me just discovering the show and buying all of these DVDs. And as I was discovering the show, I also got my first job, and I really didn't have anything else to spend money on. So I remember the very first classic Doctor Who DVD I bought was the Ark in Space, which is known as one of the better classic series stories. I bought it because I think at the time it was like $10. And I told myself, okay, I'm just gonna buy one, just so I can get a feel for what the classic series was like. Just one, and then I'll just keep watching the show as it comes along. And then I watched this, and it's just like, maybe I should just buy one more, just to kind of see what it's like. Things kind of happened, and I bought more. And then I bought more. And then I kept buying more. And more just started arriving. I didn't order these. Help. They just started appearing at my doorstep. I didn't order them. As I was discovering the show, it was just this explosion of, you know, this universe that I had never been exposed to before. You know, science fiction was always just, you know, like either Star Wars or Star Trek. There was really no in between. And then it's just sort of like, oh no, it can be as many things as you want to. Like, with Star Wars, you always had, a similar kind of story. And Star Trek, you always had, this is the Starship Enterprise. And that's just how every single episode began. But with Doctor Who, it's just like, okay, you have an idea, go for it. It can literally be anything you want it to be. And sure, the show has settled into a formula all its own, but at that time, just the sheer possibility of what Doctor Who could be was enough to get those, little synapses firing again, because they were just kind of locked down at this point in my life. And so I literally still have a little journal filled with old ideas that I thought, oh man, that would make a great episode. Oh man, wouldn't this be scary? And that's where I am today. I'm living in Atlanta and I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I'm a filmmaker, I'm a storyteller, and some of the things that you may or may not see pop up on this channel with my name on it might be from a old notebook where I used to write old ideas, but I kind of polished them off and made them into something that people might actually want to watch. And I'm still watching Doctor Who. The most recent season, which just wrapped up, was really, really excellent. I really love where they're taking the show. It's a really cool and weird idea. That's pretty much the number one thing I like watching Doctor Who for, is now it's just like, okay, what weird thing can they come up with this time? Here we are 10 years later from when I started to watch Doctor Who. I'm still a massive fan, and, the show has pushed me to be where I want to be today in a not so direct way. And it's never going to happen, but it would be cool to do something in an official capacity. But I like to think that me just sort of repurposing any ideas that I might have come up with into a creative outlet that I can actually produce is close enough. And I honestly hope that as a creator, I'm able to inspire someone else like me into a position like that, to where they're able to come up with all these different ideas that no one else has ever come up with before, and then just work themselves into a place to where they can produce it and make something of it and do really cool stuff.